How often does this happen to you? Ugh. Ah! Huh? Introducing Kiki Fix Loose Joints. The creamy white liquid gucks up the joints to give it more friction and dries clear.
So how does this magical white stuff work? Let's examine how it works on different joints, starting from the head.
Pop the head, push the ball peg to one side, poke it, squirt it, and let the Kiki run down the cracks into the hinge. Working it in by moving the joint back and forth. Push the ball peg to the other side. Give it another squirt and work it in again. Now that you've had your Kiki fill, walk away and let it dry.
Here you can see the loosey-goosey before and the tight after.
If the elbow is double jointed like Groot here, identify which hinge is loose and only squirt in that hinge. If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Please, let me fix it. How about it? So I can break it again!
Work it into the hinge by moving the joint back and forth. Turn Groot around, bend the elbow to expose the hinge, and give it another squirt, working it in yet again. Now go get yourself a drink and let it dry.
Here you can see Groot flimsy as a stick and then hard as a shaft.
Usually, Venom could beat most characters with one arm tied behind his back, if the peg wasn't too small for the shoulder socket.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
Now, what you want to do here is coat the outside wall of the socket. Try not to get too much on the bottom of the socket, because that will cause a gap, making the shoulder jut out further than it should. Instead, coat the peg with layers of Kiki, allowing it to dry in between until the arm is a snug fit but can still rotate freely. Be careful on how you lay it down to dry too. You don't want the Kiki to drip into the shoulder hinge and accidentally lock it up.
I can't put my arms down!
Being such a notorious crime boss, you wouldn't think Tombstone would bow down this much.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Poke it, squirt it, and let the Kiki run down the side of the cracks of the ab crunch. Work it in by moving the joint back and forth, wipe off any excess, flip them over like the cooler side of the pillow, and give them another squirt. Work it in, lay it down, and let the Tombstone dry before adding any more Kiki. Here's an older figure that's so loose it's basically unusable. You could say it's a waste.
He does a muttly laugh.
Twist it, squirt it, work it, leave it. So let's say that you forget about the figure, maybe it's a day or two later, and you pick it up and you try to move it and it feels like it might break. Don't force it. Get out the hairdryer, heat up the joint, and try moving it again. Mine just got a little bit gucked up. You see those dry bits? Well, that's dried up Kiki. So just wipe them away and reassess.
You can see Spider-Man being nice and loose, and then he tightens up that stomach.
Alright, for the hip joints, you're going to want to lay out Black Panther like he's having his first waxing.
No! Kelly Clarkson!
Get in there real deep and give it a squirt. Don't be cheeky, work in that Kiki. You might want to shake a leg like Elvis before it all dries up on you.
6 hours later.
By now you already know the drill. It goes from loosey-loose to tighty-tight.
I would say the worst offender for loose joints is actually Medicom's Mafex. To illustrate this, I'm going to disassemble Batman with one hand. You might have noticed that he lost a pouch on his belt. That glued right back on. Here's the same figure after I've kikied up the joints. When it comes to Mafex figures, you still want to be able to disassemble the figure. Having the ball pegs pop out of the socket is much better than snapping them, right? So be very sparing with your Kiki, let it dry, and add more if you need it. When it comes down to it, Kiki is as advertised, a fix for loose joints.